On this planet, there exist hidden corners where reality bends and nature writes its most unimaginable poetry. These are not ordinary destinations marked on tourist maps, but sacred wonders carved by forces beyond human comprehension. To witness them, you must cross borders of comfort, leave familiar ground, and surrender to landscapes that challenge everything you thought possible.
So if you want more journeys into the unforgiving, the beautiful, and the unknown, subscribe. Hit that button and join us as we explore the places that don't fit on postcards.
Every location reveals Earth's deepest secrets, where geology, time, and atmosphere conspire to create visions that haunt your memory forever. If you seek to understand the planet's true creative power, subscribe now and join us on this journey through the most impossible places you must see once in life. The Zhangjiajie pillars rise like ancient stone towers reaching toward the heavens, some standing over 660 feet tall with vertical walls that seem carved by divine hands. These sandstone formations began as ocean sediment over 380 million years ago, slowly lifted by tectonic movement, then sculpted by rain and wind into their current impossible shapes. The entire park covers more than 185 square miles, containing over 3,000 individual columns that create a vertical forest of rock unlike anything else on Earth. When morning fog rolls through the valleys, the pillars appear to float in white clouds, transforming the landscape into a suspended realm between earth and sky. Scientists have discovered that erosion continues at a rate of less than 1 millimeter per century, meaning these formations will stand for millions of years more. The longest glass bridge in the world stretches 1,400 feet between two cliffs here, allowing visitors to walk above the abyss while sensing the depth of geological time beneath transparent panels. Local legend says immortal spirits live among these peaks, and standing beneath their towering presence, you understand why ancient peoples believed gods shaped this land. The air tastes different here, carrying mineral dust and mountain moisture that fills your lungs with the breath of stone itself. Sunlight filters through the narrow gaps between the columns in thin golden blades, striking moss and lichen that cling to sheer rock faces like living maps of time. Each ledge becomes a miniature ecosystem where twisted pines grow sideways from cracks no wider than a hand, their roots gripping stone with quiet defiance. From a distance, these trees look like green crowns perched atop stone giants, reinforcing the illusion that the pillars are living beings frozen in mid-step. The wind moves differently here, funneled through vertical corridors where it whistles, hums, and sometimes roars, creating a natural symphony that echoes between walls of rock. Birds circle in wide, effortless arcs, using rising thermal currents that spiral up the cliffs, disappearing into mist and reappearing like drifting thoughts. Deep within the valleys, streams carve hidden channels, polishing stone into smooth, dark ribbons that reflect the sky in broken fragments. Every drop of water carries microscopic grains of quartz and sand, continuing the slow, relentless shaping of the towers, grain by grain. At sunset, the pillars burn with shades of copper, amber, and deep crimson, as if the mountains themselves are lit from within. Shadows stretch and interlock, turning solid stone into a shifting maze of light and dark that changes by the minute. In those moments, time feels suspended, and you sense not just the age of the rock, but the vast patience of the planet itself, working silently, endlessly, turning mountains into memory while making memory feel like stone. Socotra Island floats in the Arabian Sea like a forgotten fragment from another planet, separated from mainland Africa for over 20 million years. This isolation created one of the most alien ecosystems on Earth. Where 1/3 of all plant species exist nowhere else, and evolution followed its own strange rules. The dragon blood tree stands as the island's symbol, with an umbrella-shaped crown that looks upside down, and red sap that ancient traders believed was actual dragon blood. These trees can live over 650 years, their thick trunks storing water through months of drought, while their dense canopy creates shade in the merciless desert heat. The island's limestone caves stretch for miles underground, carved by water that once flowed freely before climate patterns shifted thousands of years ago. When you walk across the white sand dunes that border turquoise lagoons, you feel as if stepping onto Mars while still breathing Earth's salty ocean air. Botanists have identified over 800 rare species here, including plants that flower only once every decade and succulents that grow in spiral patterns defying normal botanical geometry. The local population speaks a language unrelated to Arabic, preserving words and sounds that date back to before recorded history. Socotra remains one of the least visited places on Earth due to its remoteness, yet those who reach its shores describe an experience that fundamentally changes how they understand biodiversity and isolation. The sunset here paints the strange trees in gold and crimson, casting shadows that stretch across sand like fingers reaching from another dimension. As night falls, the sky above Socotra explodes with stars, unfiltered by city light, revealing the Milky Way as a dense river of fire stretching from horizon to horizon. The silence is so complete that even small sounds feel amplified, the crunch of sand underfoot echoing like a signal across an empty world. Bats slip silently between cliffs and caves, emerging in dark streams to hunt insects that themselves evolved in isolation, shaped by the same long separation that molded the island's plants. The ocean surrounding Socotra shifts from deep sapphire to glowing bioluminescent blue on certain nights, where each movement in the water ignites trails of living light, turning waves into flowing constellations. Fishermen here still navigate by memory, stars, and subtle changes in wind, following routes passed down through generations who learned to read the sea as carefully as a map. The rocky plateaus hold fossilized coral far above modern sea level, silent proof that this land has risen and fallen with ancient oceans, carrying the memory of drowned worlds within its stone. Even the soil feels different, pale and mineral-rich, dust in your skin with fine powder that smells faintly of salt and sun-baked rock. Standing among dragon blood trees at twilight, their silhouettes forming black umbrellas against a burning sky, you feel as if time itself has slowed, stretched thin across millions of years of separation. In that moment, Socotra no longer feels like an island, but like a living museum of Earth's forgotten experiments. A place where evolution paused, took a different path, and left behind a landscape that feels less like geography and more like a message from another version of the planet. Salar de Uyuni spreads across southwestern Bolivia as the world's largest salt flat, covering over 4,000 square miles at an altitude exceeding 1,800 feet. This vast white expanse was once part of a prehistoric lake that dried up tens of thousands of years ago, leaving behind a crust of salt over 30 feet thick in some places. During the rainy season, a thin layer of water transforms the entire surface into the world's largest natural mirror, perfectly reflecting the sky and creating an illusion where heaven and earth merge into one. The salt hexagons form naturally as underground water rises through cracks, evaporates, and leaves crystalline patterns that stretch endlessly in every direction. Beneath this surreal landscape lies over 50% of the world's lithium reserves, making it not only a natural wonder but also a strategic resource for future technology. When you stand in the middle of the flats during the dry season, the horizon disappears completely, and your sense of distance collapses into infinite whiteness that disorients even the most experienced travelers. The silence here is absolute, broken only by the crunch of salt crystals beneath your feet and the wind that carries no scent except the mineral breath of ancient seabeds. At night, without any light pollution, the stars appear so close and numerous that the Milky Way seems to pour directly onto the salt surface. Several islands rise from the flats, covered with giant cacti that grow over 30 feet tall and live for more than a millennium, proving life persists even in the most impossible conditions. Visitors describe a sense of floating in pure space, where the physical laws governing perception seem suspended, and reality becomes a canvas of light, reflection, and endless white geometry. As the sun climbs higher, the surface of the flats begins to shimmer, bending light in subtle waves that make distant mountains appear to float like mirages above the white plain. Each step leaves a temporary imprint, a fragile footprint that will be erased by wind and drifting crystals, reminding you how quickly even human presence is absorbed by this immense scale. In certain areas, salt hotels rise directly from the flats, their walls, floors, and furniture carved from compressed crystals, turning the landscape itself into shelter. The air at this altitude is thin and sharp, filling your lungs with a cool, dry clarity that makes every breath feel deliberate and amplified. During storms, lightning races across the sky and reflects off the wet surface, doubling each bolt into a blinding corridor of light that seems to split the world in two. The reflection becomes so perfect that birds flying overhead appear to glide through an inverted sky, their shadows merging with their mirrored forms below. Beneath the crust, briny pools shift slowly, creating hidden patterns of pressure and movement that subtly reshape the surface over time. Even the colors of the salt change with the light, shifting from blinding white to soft pinks, pale blues, and golden hues as minerals and algae tint the crust in delicate layers. Standing there, surrounded by nothing but sky and salt, you lose all reference points. as if the planet itself has been reduced to pure geometry and light. In that vast openness, the mind quiets and the flats stop feeling like a place and begin to feel like a state of being, where scale dissolves, time stretches, and Earth reveals how small, how temporary, and how extraordinary every moment of presence truly is. Marble caves extend along the shores of General Carrera Lake in Patagonia, where glacial water has carved cathedral-like chambers into pure calcium carbonate over the past 6,000 years. The caves glow in shades of blue and turquoise, reflecting the lake's color, which comes from glacial minerals suspended in the crystal-clear water. These formations change appearance depending on water levels and light conditions, creating a living sculpture that transforms throughout the day and across seasons. The walls show smooth, flowing patterns that look like frozen waves, evidence of water's patient power to reshape solid stone into liquid forms. To reach the caves, you must travel by boat across the remote lake, passing through one of the least populated regions on Earth, where mountains rise directly from the water. The lake itself straddles the border between Chile and Argentina, remaining cold year-round due to its glacial source, with temperatures rarely exceeding 50 degrees Fahrenheit. When sunlight penetrates the cave openings, it illuminates the interior with an ethereal blue glow that seems to emanate from the stone itself rather than any external source. Scientists have measured the water's exceptional purity, finding it contains fewer dissolved minerals than almost any other natural water body on the planet. The caves continue to evolve as the lake's water level fluctuates, slowly eroding new chambers and deepening existing passages in a process that will continue for millennia. Standing inside these marble halls, you hear only the gentle lap of water against stone and feel the cool breath of ancient geology surrounding you. This place represents the intersection of water, stone, and light, a natural temple where Earth displays its most delicate yet powerful creative force. As the boat drifts closer, ripples on the lake send moving bands of light across the cave walls, causing the marble to pulse and breathe with shifting shades of blue, silver, and deep cobalt. Each small wave becomes a brushstroke, repainting the interior again and again, so no two moments inside the caves are ever exactly the same. The sound of water echoes softly, amplified by curved stone, creating a low, resonant hum that feels less like noise and more like a heartbeat of the cavern itself. In certain chambers, the ceiling dips so low that reflections create the illusion of endless tunnels, where stone above and water below merge into a single, seamless surface. The air inside carries a faint mineral scent mixed with glacial cold, sharp and clean, filling your senses with the feeling of standing inside something still being formed. In winter, when the light is softer and the water darker, the caves take on deeper, more mysterious tones, shifting from bright turquoise to midnight blue and shadowed gray. In summer, when the sun sits higher, the interiors glow brighter, as if lit from within by an unseen source. Tiny droplets cling to overhangs, slowly forming new curves and edges. Proof that even now the stone is still moving, still changing, still yielding to water one molecule at a time. Every smooth surface records thousands of years of contact between liquid and rock, a silent conversation written in polished marble. In these chambers, you don't just see geology, you feel it in motion. A reminder that even the hardest stone is temporary when faced with enough time, enough water, and enough quiet persistence. Dedvlay sits in the heart of the Namib Desert as a white clay pan surrounded by the world's highest sand dunes, some reaching over 1,200 feet. The pan was formed when the Sachab River flooded the area, allowing camel thorn trees to grow, before the climate shifted and sand dunes blocked the river's flow. The trees died approximately 600 to 700 years ago, but remain standing, preserved by the extremely dry climate that prevents decomposition. Their blackened skeletons contrast sharply against the white clay floor and the deep orange dunes that frame the pan, creating one of photography's most surreal natural compositions. The name means dead marsh, and walking among these fossilized trees feels like entering a frozen moment in time, where death itself has been suspended. The dunes surrounding Dedvlay contain iron oxide that gives them their distinctive red color, and they shift constantly under the desert wind, gradually encroaching on the pan. Temperatures here can exceed 113 degrees Fahrenheit during the day and drop near freezing at night, creating thermal extremes that few living things can survive. The clay floor cracks into geometric patterns during the dry season, forming natural tiles that crunch beneath your feet with each step. Scientists have studied the tree wood and found it so desiccated that it no longer burns, transformed into something between wood and stone. When the rare fog from the Atlantic Ocean reaches inland, it provides the only moisture in this hyper-arid environment, creating brief moments when the desert breathes. Standing in Deadvley at dawn, watching the sun illuminate the orange dunes while the dead trees cast long shadows across white clay, you witness a landscape that exists outside normal time, where past and present overlap in a single, surreal frame. The Waitomo glowworm caves descend into New Zealand's limestone bedrock, where millions of tiny bioluminescent larvae create a galaxy of blue-green light in complete darkness. These glowworms are actually fungus gnat larvae that produce light through a chemical reaction to attract prey into sticky threads they hang from cave ceilings. The caves formed over 30 million years as acidic water slowly dissolved the limestone, creating chambers and underground rivers that flow through total blackness. When you float silently on a boat through the main chamber, looking up at thousands of glowing points, Your brain struggles to distinguish between the cave ceiling and the night sky. The glowworms spend up to 9 months in larval form, glowing continuously to survive, before transforming into adult gnats that live only a few days without eating. The intensity of their light increases when they are hungry, creating a natural brightness that varies throughout the cave system. The temperature inside remains constant at around 52 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, creating perfect conditions for these creatures to thrive in their dark ecosystem. Scientists have found that even a small amount of noise or light can cause the glowworms to dim their bioluminescence, so visitors must remain completely silent during the boat journey. The caves also contain spectacular stalactites and stalagmites formed over millions of years, growing at a rate of about 1 cubic centimeter per century. Water drips constantly from the ceiling, each drop contributing to the ongoing formation of these mineral structures and creating a subtle symphony of echoes. The Maori people knew these caves for centuries, using them for shelter and burial sites, believing they held spiritual significance. Today, floating beneath this living constellation while surrounded by stone carved by ancient water, you experience one of Earth's most magical intersections of geology and biology. Mount Roraima rises as a flat-topped mountain or tepui on the border of Venezuela, Brazil, and Guyana, reaching over 9,200 feet with vertical cliffs dropping more than 1,300 feet. This tabletop mountain is one of the oldest geological formations on Earth, consisting of sandstone dating back approximately 2 billion years to the Precambrian era. The summit covers about 12 square miles and hosts a completely unique ecosystem isolated from the surrounding lowlands, where evolution has created species found nowhere else. The constant rain and mist have eroded the sandstone into bizarre formations, including stone mushrooms, crystal valleys, and black rock pools filled with carnivorous plants. Indigenous Pemon people consider the mountain sacred, calling it the House of the Gods, and their legends describe it as the stump of a mighty tree that once held all the world's fruits. The trek to the summit takes at least 2 days through cloud forest and across rivers, climbing a natural ramp that provides the only accessible route to the top. Once above, the landscape transforms into something alien, with black rock weathered into shapes that resemble ruins of an ancient city designed by non-human intelligence. The frequent rain creates temporary waterfalls that cascade over the cliffs, some becoming mist before reaching the ground far below. Scientists have documented unique species of frogs, insects, and plants that have evolved in complete isolation on the summit for millions of years. The temperature at the top remains cool even in tropical latitudes, and fog can descend suddenly, reducing visibility to just a few feet and creating an atmosphere of mystery. Standing on the edge of Mount Roraima, looking down at clouds drifting below your feet while strange rock formations rise around you, you feel transported to the beginning of time when Earth was still young and wild. This place inspired Arthur Conan Doyle's novel, The Lost World, and once you witness its impossible landscape, you understand why imagination and reality merge here. The Wave is a sandstone rock formation in Arizona, USA, where layers of stone ripple in smooth curves colored in shades of orange, red, yellow, and pink. This geological marvel formed from sand dunes during the Jurassic period over 190 million years ago, compressed into stone, then exposed through erosion. The distinctive wave pattern comes from alternating layers of sediment deposited under different conditions, creating bands that follow the ancient wind patterns preserved in stone. Only 20 people per day are allowed to visit through a lottery system, making it one of the most restricted natural sites in America to prevent erosion from foot traffic. The hike to reach the wave covers about 6 miles round trip through unmarked desert terrain with no trail, requiring navigation skills and endurance under the Arizona sun. The sandstone is surprisingly fragile despite its ancient age. and park rangers protect it carefully because a single misplaced step can damage formations that took millions of years to create. When sunlight hits the curved surfaces at certain angles, the rock seems to glow from within, illuminating the layers and creating depth that makes the stone appear soft and fluid. The entire area sits at about 5,000 feet elevation in a region that receives less than 6 inches of rain per year, preserving the delicate erosion patterns. Photographers travel from around the world for the chance to capture this formation, knowing they may never return due to the limited permits. The curves and swirls in the rock face create optical illusions where scale becomes difficult to judge, and patterns seem to move as you walk around them. Standing before the wave, running your hand across stone that once flowed as sand in dinosaur times, you touch deep history made visible. This formation represents Earth's patience, showing how wind, water, and time collaborate across millions of years to create temporary beauty that will eventually erode away. The experience of being selected through lottery and successfully navigating to this hidden wonder makes the encounter feel earned and precious, a reward for those who respect nature's fragility and power. Pamukkale rises in southwestern Turkey as a series of white terraces formed by calcium-rich thermal waters flowing down the hillside over thousands of years. The name means cotton castle in Turkish, describing how these travertine formations glow white against the green landscape, resembling frozen waterfalls or clouds solidified into stone. The thermal springs maintain a constant temperature of about 95 degrees Fahrenheit, depositing calcium carbonate as the water cools and evaporates, building the terraces at a rate of about 1 centimeter per year. The ancient city of Hierapolis was built directly above these formations over 2,000 years ago by Greek settlers who believed the waters held healing properties. Ruins of temples, theaters, and bathhouses still stand, creating a surreal combination where human history and geological process occupy the same space. The pools appear bright turquoise when filled with water, contrasting sharply with the pure white calcite terraces. creating a color combination that seems artificial but is entirely natural. For decades, hotels were built directly on the formations, and visitors wore shoes while walking on the terraces, causing significant damage and discoloration to the white stone. In the 1990s, the Turkish government removed the hotels and restricted access, requiring visitors to walk barefoot and limiting which terraces could be entered to allow natural restoration. The water contains high levels of minerals including calcium, magnesium, and sulfate, and soaking in the warm pools is said to help with various ailments, continuing the ancient tradition of thermal healing. From a distance, Pamukkale looks like a snow-covered mountain slope, an impossible sight in Turkey's warm climate, creating visual confusion that draws visitors closer. The terraces cascade down about 525 feet over a distance of more than 800 feet, creating a vast natural sculpture visible from miles away. Walking barefoot across the warm, smooth calcite while thermal water flows over your feet, you participate in a geological process that has continued uninterrupted since long before human civilization. The sunset light turns the white terraces golden and pink, and the pools reflect the changing sky, transforming the landscape into something that belongs in dreams rather than waking life. Pamukkale stands as proof that Earth's internal heat continues to shape its surface, bringing minerals and energy from deep below to create beauty that we can witness and touch. Antelope Canyon winds through Arizona sandstone as a narrow slot canyon where light beams penetrate from above, illuminating walls that flow in smooth curves polished by flash floods. The Navajo name means the place where water runs through rocks, and the canyon was indeed formed by violent floods rushing through the stone, carving and smoothing the passageways over millions of years. The canyon walls range in color from deep purple and orange to pink and red, depending on the angle of light and the mineral content in different layers of sandstone. The most famous phenomenon occurs when direct sunlight shines through the narrow openings above. creating visible beams of light that seem solid enough to touch. These light beams appear only during certain times of year when the sun is high enough to penetrate directly down into the canyon, making them a seasonal miracle that photographers and visitors plan trips around. The canyon is only accessible with Navajo guides who understand the flash flood danger and can interpret the weather conditions that might make the narrow passages deadly. The walls seem to move in frozen waves, their surfaces so smooth they reflect light, creating an organic interior that feels more like a living entity than solid rock. At its narrowest points, the canyon is barely 2 feet wide, forcing visitors to walk sideways while sandstone walls rise over 100 feet above their heads. The formation sits on Navajo land and is considered sacred, a place where stone and light create a natural cathedral for contemplation and awe. When you stand inside during a light beam event, dust particles in the air become visible in the beam, and the entire space glows with amber light that transforms ordinary vision into something transcendent. The temperature inside remains cooler than the desert outside, and the smooth walls retain a faint dampness from the last rain, reminding you that this beautiful space can become a raging torrent without warning. Antelope Canyon represents the artistic capacity of water and time working together, showing how even the hardest materials eventually surrender to patient erosion. The experience of walking through these flowing stone passages, watching light paint the walls in shifting colors, and feeling the ancient smoothness beneath your hands creates a memory that returns in dreams. Blood Falls flows from the Taylor Glacier in Antarctica as a 5-story waterfall of deep red liquid against pure white ice, creating one of the planet's most startling visual contrasts. The red color comes from iron-rich salt water that has been trapped beneath the glacier for over 1.5 million years, oxidizing when it meets the air and turning the water rust-colored. Scientists discovered that microbes live in this subglacial lake without sunlight or oxygen, surviving on sulfur and iron compounds in one of Earth's most extreme environments. The waterfall is actually a slow seep rather than a continuous flow, but when it emerges, it stains the ice red, creating a sight that looks like the glacier is bleeding. This discovery has profound implications for astrobiology, proving that life can exist in conditions previously thought impossible, similar to what might be found under the ice of Jupiter's moon Europa. The brine beneath the glacier is about 3 times saltier than seawater, preventing it from freezing despite temperatures well below the normal freezing point. The Taylor Glacier sits in the McMurdo Dry Valleys, one of the most Mars-like environments on Earth, receiving almost no snow and experiencing extreme cold year-round. When explorers first discovered blood falls in 1911, they assumed the red color came from algae, but the true explanation proved far stranger and more significant. The microbial ecosystem existing in complete darkness beneath hundreds of feet of ice represents a form of life that has been isolated and evolving independently for over 1 million years. Visiting this remote location requires traveling to Antarctica, then flying or sailing to the dry valleys, making it one of the least accessible wonders on Earth. Standing before the red stain against pristine white ice and knowing that ancient, alien-like life exists in the darkness below creates a sense of encountering something fundamentally other. Blood Falls demonstrates that Earth still holds secrets, and that life's tenacity exceeds our assumptions about where and how organisms can survive. This impossible waterfall, frozen in one of the most hostile places on the planet, continues to challenge our understanding of biology and planetary science. The door to hell burns continuously in Turkmenistan's Karakum Desert, where a natural gas crater has been on fire since 1971, creating a perpetual inferno in the middle of empty desert. The crater measures about 230 feet wide and 65 feet deep, glowing orange at night and releasing flames that roar with the sound of escaping gas. This unnatural wonder began when Soviet geologists were drilling for oil and accidentally punctured a massive underground natural gas cavern, causing the ground to collapse and swallow the drilling. equipment. Fearing that the crater would release poisonous gas, the geologists decided to light it on fire, expecting the gas to burn off in a few weeks. Over 50 years later, the fire continues to burn, fed by seemingly endless reserves of natural gas beneath the desert floor. The local Turkmen call it the door to hell or the gates of hell, and at night the flames illuminate the surrounding desert with an eerie orange glow visible from miles away. The heat near the crater is intense, making it impossible to approach the edge without feeling your skin prickle from the radiated warmth. The flames flicker and dance with varying intensity, depending on the gas pressure below, sometimes shooting higher into the air and sometimes settling to a steady burn. Scientists have recently descended into the crater using heat-resistant equipment, discovering bacteria that thrive in the extreme conditions, living near the flames in temperatures that would kill most known organisms. The surrounding desert landscape adds to the surreal quality, with sand dunes and sparse vegetation creating an empty backdrop for this burning portal. Visitors describe the experience of standing at the crater's edge at night, feeling the heat on their faces while stars shine overhead, as profoundly disorienting, mixing natural desert with man-made disaster into something that feels mythological. The crater has become a tourist attraction despite its remote location, drawing those who want to witness an environmental mistake transformed into an accidental wonder. Plans have been discussed to extinguish the fire and cap the gas, but so far it continues to burn, consuming natural resources while creating a spectacle that captures human imagination. The door to hell represents the intersection of human error and nature's power, where our attempts to extract resources created something we cannot control, a perpetual fire that may burn for centuries more. Fly Geyser rises in the Black Rock Desert of Nevada as a man-made accident transformed by nature into a multicolored mound crowned with jets of steaming water. The geyser sits on private land and began in 1964 when a geothermal test well was drilled but not properly sealed, allowing hot water to escape and gradually build up the mineral formations. The mound has grown to about 12 feet high, covered in bright green and red mineral deposits created by thermophilic algae that thrive in the hot, mineral-rich water. 3 main jets shoot water constantly several feet into the air, creating a constant sound of escaping steam and the smell of sulfur hanging in the hot desert air. The rainbow colors covering the terraces come from different minerals dissolving in the water and depositing as it cools, along with the algae that create living pigments across the surface. The geysers' water maintains a constant temperature of about 200 degrees Fahrenheit, emerging from deep geothermal sources that heat groundwater far below the desert surface. Over the decades, the constant flow has created pools and terraces around the main mound, spreading across the flat desert like a miniature alien landscape. The site remained relatively unknown for years due to its location on private property, but photographs began circulating online, turning it into one of the internet's most shared images of surreal landscapes. In 2016, the property was purchased by the Burning Man organization, and limited public access is now available through guided tours. The contrast between the bright colors of the geyser and the muted browns and grays of the surrounding desert creates a visual shock that makes the feature seem photoshopped, even when standing directly before it. The constant moisture from the geyser has created a small wetland in the middle of the desert, supporting plants and insects that would not otherwise survive in the harsh environment. Fly Geyser demonstrates how human activity can accidentally create natural beauty, how mistakes can evolve over time into something worth preserving. The jets of water spray continuously, catching sunlight and creating small rainbows in the mist, while the algae slowly expand the colored terraces outward. Standing near this accidental wonder, hearing the hiss of escaping steam and feeling the warmth radiating from the mound, you witness an ongoing geological process happening on a human timescale. This geyser is less than 60 years old, but appears ancient, proving that nature works constantly to transform and beautify even our industrial accidents. The experience of seeking impossible places changes travelers fundamentally, opening eyes to Earth's infinite creativity and humbling human perception before forces larger than civilization. These locations exist as invitations to step beyond comfort, to chase horizons where the familiar dissolves into wonder. Whether walking on salt flats that mirror infinity, standing inside canyons where light becomes tangible, or facing mountains that float above clouds, each journey writes itself into your memory as a permanent mark. The planet offers these gifts to those willing to search, to endure difficulty, and to arrive with open senses. Return to ordinary life carrying these visions, knowing that impossible places exist, and that you have stood within them, breathing their strange air and touching their surreal surfaces. This is the gift of travel at its deepest level, transforming not just what you see, but who you become.